Good afternoon, all of you. So it is a great honor and pride for me to introduce the All India first ranking candidate this year to you. Though she doesn't need any introduction. You all know. You must have seen her face in the newspaper and in the media. So welcome to our program, Shruti. All the best. Okay. So she was a student of General Studies course 2 years ago, and we have requested her to share her experience of preparing for this exam with you and give you certain tips to prepare well for your attempts. I have specially requested her to tell you how to link the class notes that you get here with your self-study as she had done it. So anyway, I don't want to hold you back for long. So Shruti, the stage is now set for you, please.
Hello, good afternoon everyone. So I've been asked to talk to you. If you have any questions at the end of it and if you have any doubts, you can ask me. I'll just be sharing, I think, what maybe worked out for me. Hopefully it works out for all of you and most of you. So I'll just be dealing with certain questions that people might have regarding the examination and as to how I dealt with them. So firstly is with respect to what motivated me to take up civil services as my career. And I think this is very important because as all of you know, this is not an easy journey. It's not something that you prepare for in 1 week or a few months. It requires a certain amount of commitment. At least, I think, 2 years at the minimum, because I think at least 1 year before you start giving the examination or appear for your prelims, and at least 1 year during which the examination itself takes place. So you need to understand why you're sitting for this examination. So for me, I personally wanted to do something I always felt. I think it would be personally fulfilling for me to do something in which I could do something for people around me, help them in some way, work on the ground. And this gave me a sort of fulfillment. And I felt that the civil services provides me a platform where I can best do that to my ability. So it's important for you to understand why you want to do it. If it's only because of parental pressure, if it's only because of the status, if it's only because you think it'll give you a certain amount of respect in life, I think that sort of motivation won't keep you going for as long as 2 years. And so you need to understand that and go forward thinking that. Secondly, which is the most important, once you've decided that you're going to take this examination, is the strategy. And there are 3 levels, prelims, mains and interview. So there's, first and foremost, it's important to understand that there's no clear-cut division in terms of कि अच्छा अभी prelims की पढ़ाई, फिर mains की पढ़ाई, फिर interview की पढ़ाई. It's an integrated sort of preparation, but there is a difference in strategy at each level. So for prelims and mains, the books that you'll be relying for will be the same. So I'll just, I think, depending on the subject, I'll just tell you the books which I use. They were basic books, nothing out of the blue that I, scored out of from some different shop that you guys don't have access to. It was the basic books. So for example, polity, you take up, it was Lakshmikant. And apart from Lakshmikant, these are books you have to read for both mains and prelims. Right now, I'm mainly telling you for prelims. For mains, I also added certain more things for my own, which I'll tell you later. So Lakshmikant was there. For prelims last year, I also went through the BARE Act. Just the BARE Act. I just revised it 2 times before it won't take too much time. So it looks like a very fat thing, but however many articles are there in the Constitution, you just read that. You have already gone through that in Lakshmikant. So it's not as if you just replace Lakshmikant, but if you have had multiple revisions of Lakshmikant, you can go through the BARE Act in terms of cracking certain prelims questions. Sometimes the question is the Constitution mentions this. So you know that you've read it in Lakshmikant, but you don't know if it's mentioned in the Constitution. So if you just go through that, I think it personally worked for me. If you don't have time for that, it's completely fine. I'm just telling you what I did. So first was that, polity, then economics. So economics, I was in the residential coaching academy at Jamia. So there was, I didn't go for all the classes there, but there was a sir who sadly passed away during the pandemic, Zulfikar sir. So his notes I mainly relied on. And so they were available. I used that. Some people who were preparing alongside me also looked at certain other notes which are available in the market. If you are coming for coaching classes, I think Sir teaches economics here, you can just rely on your coaching classes notes. So I think the most important thing is relying on one source. So whatever coaching you're going for, whatever classes you're going for, just stick to those notes. Apart from that, you can refer any book. I personally didn't use it. 11th class NCRTs, people who have absolutely no background and who want to go through the basics of micro, macro and Indian economic development can go through the 11th, 12th NCRTs as well. Economics, history. I personally had a history optional background, so I didn't go through many other books, but Spectrum is one thing all of you can go through for modern history. For ancient and medieval, there are two ways of going about it. So one is the chronology based idea. So the old NCRTs, which is R.S. Sharma and Satish Chandra, are usually used for getting a basic hang of what the chronology was. For the prelims, I also went through the themes books. But because I was already a humanities student, it took me a little less time. I just skimmed through them and jotted down points which I thought were important with regard to the prelims. So that is more useful for a thematic sort of study after you know the chronology of what happened in ancient, medieval and modern. So that is how I went about with history. Geography, just sticking to the basic NCRTs, 11th and 12th mainly. You can also go back 9th, 10th if you feel you're not able to get a hang of the 11th ones. So that is there. What other subjects are there? Can any of you? Environment. Towards the end, closer to my prelims, I also used to do a sort of analysis of previous year papers. So based on that, I made a Google map of major national parks and sanctuaries in terms of understanding their location and not just like remembering them. So I just used to pin them and look there. I made a list of the endangered animals, the 22 species recovery program, just getting a hang of the environment that those specific animals live in. So certain things apart from the book you have to do on your own. So those things I used to sort of make a list about that. Basic, so that sort of analysis of previous year papers you can do. Any other subject? Yeah. Art and culture, I used 9th class fine arts. I think it's a good book with regard to a basic understanding of architecture, temples, which helps you in mains also. Last year there were questions which if you had gone through the fine arts book of 11th class, you could have answered sufficiently well. And for science and tech, I didn't use any specific material. You can go through the NCRTs. I think previous year's prelims paper, if you had gone through the NCRTs, it was a lot of like biology based questions. If you're just gone through previous year papers and looked at NCRTs, you would have been fine. I personally didn't go through that, but I think it's a good idea. And science and tech, I use the basic material that is available towards the end in terms of the whatever coaching books or compilations at the end which are available for prelims. I use that. So these were the basic books. Apart from that, for current affairs, you can use whatever coaching material. I used to use the compilations. I personally didn't go through monthly books because I didn't have that much time. But I have seen lots of people use the monthly books and leave the compilations. So they used to regularly read the monthlies, make tiny notes or underline, and then use the monthlies only. So that depends on you. I don't think it makes any difference. So these were the materials. For prelims, my strategy, apart from that, was going through previous year papers, analyzing them. So the last 3-4 years paper, I used to religiously go through in terms of after attempting it, go through the other options as well, Google search certain things, and then make notes out of it, just 1 or 2 pages. So I can just revise towards the end. For the other ones, like the previous 10-15 year papers, last year what I did was I looked at them thematically. So if I'm looking at modern history, I look at all the questions, sort of see where they're going, and based on that then I used to study accordingly and again make notes of whatever the answers were, because sometimes it does help. Sometimes there's the repetition of question. There was a certain question I remember regarding Parivrajaka. This is completely like I can remember right now, which was in a previous year paper, and it helped me to eliminate a certain question in the next year paper. So sometimes it does help just going through thematically previous 10, 15 year papers. So that was my strategy for prelims. For mains, it's a different ball game. There are, apart from the basic books, so you need to have a command over the basic books by that time, because you'll have revised it 2, 3, at least 3 times for your prelims, which is very, very necessary. Revision is something again which I'll again and again remind you, because it's one of the most hard, like it's the hardest thing to do. Once you've read it, there's a sort of inertia which comes. You don't want to look at that same book again. You feel it's already done, but you need to pick it up. You need to pick it up as soon as possible, and then later on as well. So multiple revisions are the only way in which you can actually make things remain in your head. For mains, apart from all of this, looking at the previous year syllabus is very, very important, and looking at previous year question papers is very, very important. So what I would suggest is, if you're, say, looking at geography, or if you're looking at environment, you would have your class notes with you, right? So you would have your class notes with you, you have your basic books with you. Before you start again revising or start preparing, just go through the syllabus of that particular geography unit. Or for example, say social issues unit, there's an issue called, I think, women's issues or population. There are certain keywords which are mentioned there. So while you're going through that material, focus on those keywords again, and then look at the previous year question papers as well, and after that come back to study. So you'll be studying the same thing, but your orientation and in your mind you'll be like, acha, this is some question which came, this is some question which may come in the future. So there's a trend you can analyze and then prepare accordingly. So that, I think, was important for me in terms of keeping the syllabus in mind and then reading your static material. As a corollary to that, and that is what Sir was also saying in terms of how to integrate your class notes with the preparation and with current affairs. So after you've done the basic preparation, when you're going through current affairs, and I personally, the newspaper was a very important part of my preparation. I used to read the Hindu early on. Towards the end, I started reading the Indian Express also. I've heard that, and I think there are editorial in terms of analysis on the site of Vajiram. So that also you can go through, but I think there's no substitute to reading the paper. So read the analysis, but also develop a habit of reading the paper as well. And so based on those headings in the syllabus, what I used to do with the notes that I used to make of the newspaper was not a note of the article itself. So for example, if there's something on river interlinking, there's a news which came, there's a proper article in it. My notes will not be about that article. My notes will be about river interlinking, right? And so I'll talk about the issue, the history of it, why, what. So it'll take a little more time. I'll use the example which was used in that, and I'll leave a little space at the end or on the side in terms of any other additional information which I'll get. So say 2 weeks later, if there's another issue or there's another issue of interstate dispute over a river interlinking project, what I'll do is I'll just add the example at the end. So my notes are already ready. If there's any additional point in terms of causes or consequences or way forward, I'll write that also. So rather than making article-based notes, I used to make topic-based notes based on the syllabus and things and topics which I feel could help me, and a probable question could come on that. So that was how I prepared for mains. And of course, I think with respect to answer writing, there's a separate thing at the end which I have to talk about. Interview, I think, is a different sort of preparation. So personally, I became a little lax after my mains. I thought, acha, let's chill for some time. You've studied a lot, and I thought that there'd be more time for my preparation once the results are out, because usually UPSC gave 1 month. So this time, as always, UPSC surprises. So I got very little time for my interview. I think 3 days after the result, 3 days after the first interview, I got my interview call. So, but I think for interview preparation, what is important, newspaper reading you've already done. It's important to develop an opinion on it and back it up. So apart from your DAF is very important. I think those are later aspects of the preparation, which I think all of you are just starting out. 2023, I think most of you are appearing in. So that is something I think you will develop later. But as a very preliminary thing, the change in terms of current affairs for the interview preparation is, you have to have some sort of opinion and balance it. It doesn't need to be a far-sighted like opinion, but the nature of the preparation changes in terms of you're not just remembering facts, but you're understanding them and understanding their consequences, issues. So just the orientation becomes a little different for interview preparation, but I think that we'll get to later on. Yeah, so this was the main thing in terms of like subparts of this. We've already discussed preparing comprehensively for prelims and mains in terms of it not necessarily being a subdivision, but say 3 months before the prelims, what you start doing is you start attempting more test series. I think you'll already enroll yourself in some sort of MCQ answering programs, or maybe solve 3 to 4 MCQs someday. Some people work like that. I used to start attempting more test series before the prelims. So 3 months before the prelims, I used to get those test series, the prelims test series, and start attempting them, and then analyze in terms of not just the answer. So I used to, the things that I've got wrong, I used to write them down in one separate notebook just before the prelims, so that I can not look at those papers again and still revise the things that I'd done wrong. But also in terms of how many questions you're attempting and how many of them are turning wrong, and also like highlight which ones you weren't sure about but still marked anyway. So there's this some maybe some subset of questions which you were not sure about but you still marked. So then you need to like guess your accuracy as well, in terms of analyze it over 10 to 15 tests, in terms of how many questions you actually want to attempt in the final paper, because different things work for different people. Okay, so this is one thing I did in terms of answering as many test series as possible 3 months before. Importance of attending classes regularly and guidance to cover the syllabus. So I think, yeah, if you're attending a coaching, which I think all of you are, try to stick to it, try to attend classes, and most importantly, integrate them with whatever you're studying, and prepare a time plan. So although the coaching may have developed some sort of time plan for you guys, I think it's also important to have your own thing going. You can't completely rely on any external factor, but integrate both of them together. So have a personal study plan as well as attend the classes, and integrate both of them together as well as you can. Guidance, I think, is very important, more important than content, because content is available in the market. So you don't have to fall for any guidance, but I think Ravindran sir here, Farooqi sir and Tariq sir especially helped me a lot during the interview in terms of history preparation, how to sort of attempt the paper, how to go about the paper itself. So I think guidance in terms of any mentor that you may have is very important. Third is study material. Study material, I think we've already gone through the material or the basic books, but what is more important is stick to one. Don't go don't think कि अच्छा there's some new material in the market, तो इसमें शायद कुछ और होगा जो पहले वाले में नहीं था. तो ऐसा नहीं है. Like I think first of all identify which one you're sticking to and then stick to it. You can keep on adding stuff. I'm not saying that don't keep on adding stuff. Sometimes you find certain new things in certain papers, but you don't need to go through all of it or the entire magazine. Just pick up what you think is important based on the syllabus, not because it's new in the market and someone else is using it. So trust one source material. Current affairs we've already talked about. Apart from whatever magazine you're following, I think personally I would also recommend what I used towards the end before my mains preparation, because I had my own notes as well. What we did, I think during the previous pandemic, 4 of our friends, we came together and we had more time at our disposal as well. So we used to divide certain topics, and each one used to prepare one, and we made a Google Doc out of it, and we used to discuss it. So by the end of those 2 months, we had a good amount of note material available based on topics that were going on in the news and which we thought were important, and important subheadings of the syllabus. So that we used. But apart from that, current affairs is something that is very important. So the Vajiram, I think towards the end, before the mains, they take out one booklet about most probable topics or something like that. So I think that was a very important addition to the notes that I had, because it made me revise important things before the mains. So choose your study material well and then stick to it. current affairs we've already covered, the newspaper we've already covered, importance of note making. And I think I personally would credit a lot to note making. And note making, I think sometimes what we do is ki acha toppers ke notes are available in the market, let's get that and we'll be sorted. But I think the process of note making itself is very important. It's not just about the final product, but making that effort yourself. And since you're familiar with it, it'll be easier for you to revise that as well. Even if you're relying on some other external process for notes, make them your own. So I also use notes, I also use material of other toppers, of other markets available, but reread it so many times that you make it your own and keep making additions to it. So at any level, any sort of material would be stagnant, so you have to keep on adding to it. So note making, I personally think, is important, but note making should not be seen to be a regurgitation of whatever you're reading. So it shouldn't be, acha, I'm reading this NCERT, I'll copy down most of it. So it needs to at least come down, there needs to be a point of note making. The point of note making is that you bring it down so it's easy for revision and it's easy for you to remember. So anyone else doesn't need to necessarily understand the notes you're making, but at least you need to understand it. And it doesn't need to be exactly you're using every single article, every single pronoun that was used in the book. Okay? And like it's important also to understand which books you need to make notes of. Say a Lakshmikant, I personally think doesn't need note making, but because it's already a book meant for the UPSC preparation, right? So that is something you need to understand. Then most important, importance of prelims test and mains exams, test writing. So for prelims, I've already told you, the nature of the exam is changing. So not just the test series I think is very, very important in terms of getting a hang of whether you've covered the entire syllabus and you've done the basic books and you know how many questions you want to attempt to get the maximum optimal score, but also previous year question papers. Okay, so there needs to be a balance between both in terms of prelims test. And I would say the same for mains test answer writing. For previous year question papers, what I used to do was, we used to again have a certain group, we used to write 3-4 questions depending on the subject we've chosen of previous year question papers. Later we used to make a sort of model test answer in terms of कि अच्छा ठीक है ये introduction अच्छा था, इसमें ये डाल सकते हैं, example ये डाल सकते हैं. तो ये हम like this we used to do for previous year papers because you don't have a ready template available in terms of previous year papers. For a test series, and I took Vajiram's test series as well. I think it was a very, like the questions were very well thought out and the checking was also good. So pick any test series that you're sticking to and work on the feedback that is given you, that is provided to you. Even if you're getting good marks in a certain question, don't be complacent. Think how you can make it better. Think how, acha, this one example you came across in some newspaper or is in your notes, go back to your notes again. If you've written an answer, after you've written the answer, when the checking thing is there, go back. Acha, ethics mein this was one example which could have made this answer better and write it down. So answer writing I think is very, very important, which I personally practice, which maybe helped me to get a good score in the final mains answers. Okay, so this was mainly in terms of prelims mains preparation. Any other things I think I might have left out with regarding this, I'll answer later. Then I come to optional subject. So firstly, why did I choose history as an optional subject? So this is one thing which I heard a lot while I was choosing my optional, that history is not a very well scoring thing. Why are you taking it? Sociology say would be better, this, that. But I think the reason I chose it, firstly, was my interest and familiarity with the topic. And I think people sometimes disregard this in terms of कि अच्छा एंथ्रो छोटा है ले लेते हैं, फिलोसफी छोटा है ले लेते हैं, उसमें टॉपर की ये आए थे, तो अगर फॉर एग्जाम्पल इफ आई गॉट बाई चांस हिस्ट्री देन मे बी नेक्स्ट ईयर लाइक अच्छा हिस्ट्री द टॉपर टू सो आई ऑल्सो टेक इट. So that's not how it works. People have topped with whatever optional they've taken. They've topped with maths, they've topped with sociology, they've topped with like any other subject. So I think first and foremost is interest, because it will involve a lot of hours. And believe me, like before the mains, the history syllabus was quite vast. So it was very, very difficult for me to balance both general studies and history. But it was my interest in the subject, and I wouldn't like mind studying for long hours this subject even before while I was making notes, which made me go on with it. Okay, so first is interest. Secondly is also I think personally that helped me, but that may not be the case. My graduation was also in history, so I had a certain familiarity. I had certain source material with me. So access to material is also important whenever you take any optional. So apart from the books that were suggested to me, in terms of Upinder Singh or say Satish Chandra or Normal Law, I had my notes from college, which also helped me. So second is material, and third is guidance. And Tariq sir was with me in Jamia RC as well, and his support from me both during the interview as well as during the entire preparation. He was the first person I went to regarding history preparation, and so I think guidance all of you guys do have if you choose to take history optional at Vajira. So this was the reason why I chose history optional. Apart from that, these are things that I did not realize, but later I realized in terms of utility of history in other aspects of the preparation as well. And first and foremost is the prelims. So prelims, the nature of questions that is coming nowadays is very different from, say, that used to come 10 years back in history, especially in ancient and medieval history. And I think maybe not in terms of the exact question. I may not have gone through the exact question, but familiarity with the subject helped me a lot to eliminate things. When it came to history preparation, whether it was the Daya Bhag or Meetakshar school last year, or say some random temple, or the etymology of word which is used. So I think Kulya Vap or something Vap question came. I remember Vap was used in the Rig Veda to sow. So I think I linked it a little with land. So these things, it helped me in the prelims to eliminate a lot of things because of my background in history. So it helped me in prelims, in general studies also. I think social issues paper in the first, in GS1 is something where you talk about social issues. So the historical background of many social issues, say women, say population, say communalism, I could better answer because of that. The essay paper again, essay paper had a specific question, I think, about history repeats itself. First as a tragedy, second as a farce. So if you had a certain history background, I felt you could use many examples. So I think not just in the optional paper, but in many aspects of general studies, history personally helped me, something which I did not think of or consider before I took the optional, but something which I realized later on. So just in case any of you guys have interest in the subject, this is something that you can consider as a positive. Okay, so this was regarding my optional subject preparation. For essay, what I did was, again, practice. I used to practice. Whenever I came across an interesting example in the newspaper, when I was reading a book, for example, non-UPSC book, I used to write that down. This is maybe something that I can probably use. I used to write down certain quotes as well. And just preparing a collection of quotes or preparing a collection of, say, sayings or examples doesn't really help you unless and until you actually use it. Because you'll get all of this, you'll get toppers, quote ka collection, you'll get toppers ki examples ka collection, both for ethics and for this. But unless and until you yourself practice in terms of where you're using it, it doesn't help. So in essay, I used to maintain that collection. At the same time, I used to practice it while I was writing, and that probably helped me. And lastly, and most importantly, is time management and motivation, which I think all of us and anyone who's preparing for this examination struggles with, is time management. So it's easier said than done, but I think it is an essential prerequisite for cracking this examination. And time management doesn't necessarily mean that you have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and study for supposedly 18 to 20 hours a day and then go to sleep, because this is a big myth. But I think, and linked to that is motivation. I think more important than motivation, because motivation is something I feel which dies down quickly. I think I remember reading this quote in terms of motivation is like bathing. You need it every day, and getting it every day becomes a little difficult. One day you'll be full of this josh, I'll crack it in my first attempt, I'll get top 10 rank. And next week you feel you're good for nothing, you can't do anything, and you don't want to study. So more important than motivation, I think, which is definitely important, is maintaining a level of consistency in your preparation and maintaining a certain level of discipline in your preparation. So once you have that sort of internal accountability that this is something that I need to finish today, and this is an option that I don't have to not finish it today. Keeping motivation away. If you make those daily targets and just stick to them, I think in the long run, things itself will start falling into place. So that sort of internal accountability you need to have. I'm not saying it's easy, but I think if you have decided to crack this examination, it's something that you have to cultivate. And in that way, I feel a supportive environment does become necessary, which I think to me was provided by my teachers, by my parents, by my friends, because there are definite lows. I'm not saying there are not lows. You feel like you're not doing enough. You feel that you can't do it. You feel you may have done anything else, and this amount of effort, if you would have put in anything else, you would already have got success. So that sort of decisions you have to make on your own. But I think once you've made that decision that you want to crack this examination, certain level of discipline is required. And there are no two ways about it. You have to sacrifice certain things. I'm not saying balance is not required. You do need breaks. I personally was one, and I think I'm emphasizing all of this too much because I personally struggled with it a lot. I'm not a person who, you know, I have been a good student. I have got good marks at all times, but I was not one who only liked to slog, right? Like I needed my breaks. I was someone when I was really productive and when I felt like being productive, I would put in every bit of my energy. But at the other times, I completely left studies and used to take breaks. But when I was studying, I made sure that I was accountable to myself, and that's why I think internal accountability is more important. You don't need to show anyone कि मैं किताब लेके बैठा हूँ 8 घंटे से बैठा हूँ, दिमाग में कुछ नहीं जा रहा, पर आपको पता होना चाहिए ये वाला टारगेट मेरे को इस दिन तक खत्म करना है, ये वाला इस दिन तक खत्म करना है, और इस दिन तक, and like there's no one else who's answerable apart from you. So I think that is going to be what I'll leave you with, and any sort of questions you have after that. Okay. I think CSAT has been an issue for lots of people in the last 2-3 years. I personally did not have a major problem with it, but at the same time, I did not let myself have that problem also because I prepared for it in advance. So what I did was, I think my English I was sort of sorted with, although at the same time, the nature of questions that are coming in the last 2 years, even someone with a basic and decent understanding of English can't count on them. So with regard to English, even if I had gone through, I'd given 3 minutes or 4 minutes to a question where I'd read the passage, I'd gone through the options and I wasn't sure of it. If I thought कि अच्छा 2 options में बहुत confusion है, I didn't make the mistake of choosing anything. Even if I'd gone through those 4 minutes, because attempts is very important and negative marking brings a lot of people down in CSAT. So अगर मैं पढ़ भी लेती थी and I thought कि no, I'm not sure about this, there's too much confusion, I would leave it and go to the next question. So with regard to English, that was my strategy. But so most of what I attempted in English turned out to be right later on. With regard to math, what I did was, I thought it was my weak point. Towards the end, I was more comfortable with it. I used to just go through videos available online. I didn't take any coaching for CSAT specifically. Because the number system is a very important topic. So I used to go through previous year question paper solution videos online. So I used to just put it on. There was one question on the screen. I used to attempt it myself, and then I used to play it again. So if I could answer it well, I went ahead. If I couldn't, I used to look at the tricks that she was using, she or she, whoever in the video was using. I used to go through these thematically, which were available online. And then later on, based on, at the end, I had like 3-4 pages worth of formulas, which I then revised at the end. So it held me in good stead. I got, at the 2 times I attempted prelims, I got 100 plus both times. So I think that was not an issue for me. But at the same time, I didn't take it for granted, because sometimes what happens is many people who scored really well in the CSAT of previous year papers 3-4 years back, they couldn't even clear this time because they were complacent. They thought, ki theek hai, let me just not look at the CSAT paper and we'll go directly. So I didn't do that. I made my notes. I compiled a collection of formulas. For English, I didn't do that much practice, but I think that worked for me.
Ma'am, when you start preparing for the first time, in how much time were you able to cover the whole syllabus?
Okay. So with me, what particularly happened was, I think I took a lot of time initially because I was sort of half-hearted in terms of how I was going about it. I decided to do this towards the end of my graduation, the third year of my graduation. I started doing it, but at that time I wasn't putting my 100% in it. After that, I did, but newspaper reading was a habit that I already had. Like irrespective, before even I even decided to appear for UPSC. Since 11th and 12th, that was something that I had cultivated early on. I used to read the Hindu, I used to read other newspapers sometimes also because I liked reading it. So that sort of familiarity with the newspaper I already had. Towards the end, the third year of my preparation, the third year of my graduation, I started going through the syllabus. I started going through the notes as well. I used to attend